So this was the movie that basically catapulted Adam Sandler. Billy Madison was the first movie, but this was the one that made him go sort of mainstream. It seems weird to say because when you look at the numbers, it wasn't like a huge hit. But being a 13-year-old or 12 or 13-year-old at the time, I can tell you that this movie hit the cultural zeitgeist. Now, as for Happy Gilmore 2, welcome back to The Rank. I'm John, and today we're going to be trying something new. I'm going to be ranking both the original Happy Gilmore, the first one from 1996, and Happy Gilmore 2 from this past weekend, both of which starred Adam Sandler and also were written by Adam Sandler and Tim Herlihy. The original was directed by Dennis Dugan, and the new installment was directed by Kyle Newacek. Now, if you're enjoying these rankings or just like the idea of getting a review of a comedy based on it being a comedy, please consider subscribing and or following, liking, and reviewing. Please put any of your questions, comments, or suggestions into the comments or email info@therankpodcast.com. And if you super duper like it, consider becoming a patron at our Patreon site at patreon.com/therankpodcast. Okay, let's see how Doubling Up does and how these two will rank. Let's go to the Potent Notables.
Potent Notables.
So as always, we start the Potent Notables with the box office info, which we'll only have for the first Happy Gilmore as the second came out on Netflix. So the original made $38.8 million domestically, but had a 2025 re-release, which made an additional $217,000, and $2.4 million internationally for a worldwide total of $41.4 million. And this was against a budget of $12 million. So this was the movie that basically catapulted Adam Sandler. Billy Madison was the first movie, but this was the one that made him go sort of mainstream. It seems weird to say because when you look at the numbers, it wasn't like a huge hit. But being a 13-year-old or 12 or 13-year-old at the time, I can tell you that this movie hit the cultural zeitgeist. Now, as for Happy Gilmore 2, we only have the streaming numbers provided by Netflix, but it was the biggest opening weekend in Netflix history. It got 46.7 million viewers to stream it in its first 3 days. It also made the first Happy Gilmore the number 3 streamed movie of the week with 11.4 million views. So I'd say it was a hit for Netflix, especially considering the budget was $30 million. That's a lot of money, and it was certainly more money than the first movie, but compared to the other summer movies that we've been ranking recently, that's basically nothing. Okay, let's start off the non-financial and box office Potent Notables with Bob Barker. Apparently, he was reticent to accept the role until he found out that he would win the fight with Happy. And when they filmed that fight, they were going to have a stunt double stand in for him for the whole fight. But he insisted on doing it, saying, quote, "Wait a minute, I know how to fight." And he didn't just know how to fight, he studied Tang Soo Do for decades with Chuck and Aaron Norris, Aaron being Chuck's brother, but still, Chuck Norris. All right. Now, another one of the actors in this movie was reluctant to be in it as well. Actually, more than reluctant, he turned it down several times apparently, and that was Christopher McDonald, or Shooter McGavin, as we know him. He said he turned it down because he was sick of getting typecast as an antagonist, but decided to take a meeting with Adam Sandler, who convinced him to do it, and now Christopher says it is one of the best decisions of his career. Interestingly, Christopher McDonald's agent actually suggested one of his other clients to the director, Dennis Dugan, for a different role. Also, Dennis Dugan, not just the director, he portrayed Doug Thompson in both movies. The other client, Carl Weathers. So as Dennis recalls, quote, he said, "I have another client, Carl Weathers, and he'd love to read for this." And I said, "Isn't he a football player guy?" He said, "Yeah, but he really wants to read for it." And I understood the subtext being, read Carl, and I can get you Chris McDonald. I just, imagine agreeing to meet with Chubbs only to get Shooter. I can't imagine the movie without either of them, so it's just, I thought that was really interesting. All right, so on to the last Potent Notable. The character Happy Gilmore was inspired by Adam Sandler's childhood friend, Kyle McDonough, whom he played high school hockey with. The McDonough family were super into hockey. The father coached high school hockey, and Kyle's brother played 13 years professionally between the NHL and other minor league hockey teams. He played for the Los Angeles Kings, New York Islanders, and San Jose Sharks. Anyway, even though the McDonoughs were all hockey, their skills translated to the golf course, where they would outdrive skilled competitors. One day, Adam's dad saw them at the driving range and incredulously said, quote, "There's something funny in there," which of course inspired Chubbs' line. So those are the Potent Notables. Let's go to the movie overview, or the movies overview. Anyway, yeah, here we go. So I watched these on back-to-back days, which may have been a mistake. I'm wondering if the second movie would have hit me differently if I hadn't seen the first one so recently. Well, I'll never know. But what I can say is that my first impression of the difference between them is that the first movie, while silly and goofy, was still grounded a little more than moderately in real life. The second one was just a pile of nonsense. And that would have been fine if it wasn't a sequel to the one that felt more real. Now, for those of you who haven't seen either, Happy Gilmore is a wannabe hockey player who becomes a professional golfer. His powerful hockey shot translating to a powerful drive off the tee. You know the old joke of I went to a fight and a hockey game broke out? Well, that was how Happy lived his life. Now, I first watched the original Happy Gilmore, when I was 12 or 13, and it was just fantastic. I loved it. I don't know if I'm unique in this feeling, but man, I used to get angry when I was young. I don't know if it's the incoming testosterone or what, but I feel like most boys are angry during adolescence. And Adam Sandler channeled that into Happy Gilmore. He was very identifiable for that age group. But does that translate to seeing him as a 58-year-old man? I think it could have. The direction they took the story was pretty odd to me. I'm trying to avoid spoilers for those of you who haven't seen it yet, but basically they steal the plot of the first, in which he needs money to get his grandma's house back from the IRS. In the second, he needs money to send his daughter to a fancy ballet school. But we have to jump through some hoops to get to the point that we understand why he needs money, because it's established that he went on to be one of the greatest golfers. So we get some heavy-handed ways to make him broke, and it's honestly too sad. While the first one is lighthearted from the get-go, the second one is definitely not. In the first Happy Gilmore, Adam Sandler wasn't as famous yet. He hadn't cultivated a bunch of sports and entertainment celebrity friends yet, and therefore we didn't see a bunch of cameos. This time around, though, he wanted to show just how legitimate of an enterprise it was by getting cameos from top golfers and basically any other famous person he's friends with. And while Happy Gilmore felt fun because it was someone trying to make a movie, Happy Gilmore 2 felt pandering because it was someone trying to appease a nostalgic audience, while also making sure he gets to hang out with friends while making it. And I don't begrudge him for this. You know, he's earned the ability to do this, so more power to him. However, a good movie this does not make. I mean, the nostalgia hitting was so heavy-handed, they basically just took the best lines and jokes from the first movie and tried to recycle them in the second. And I get they were giving a wink and a nod to the audience, but in the first movie, there's no wink and nod. Happy lives his life as a real person, whereas this Happy seems to be living in a farce. Now, as you can tell, I love the first movie, but the question was, when I watched it, would it hold up to watching it as an adult? And I can say now, it definitely does. So now you know that it will end up in one of the 3 good tiers, and the second will likely struggle to make it there. How high will the first one go, and how low will the second? Let's find out. Let's go to the rank.
A rank.
So the rank is where I rank the movie based on 10 categories: story, acting, originality, dialogue/writing, film coherence, joke relevance, character relatability, my rank, and then the laugh counter. And the laugh counter is I tally up the amount of times that the movie made me laugh out loud. 1 point per laugh out loud, that gets added to the score. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 5 in all the other categories, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. Now, before I dive into the rankings, if you're enjoying this episode, please leave a like. It really helps us out. So on to the first category, which is story. So I'm going to start each of these with the first Happy Gilmore and then go to Happy Gilmore 2. So I gave the first Happy Gilmore a 4.25. It's a fun story. A guy who wants to be a hockey player discovers he's talented at another sport and begrudgingly becomes a pro in that sport to help his grandma. It's pretty darn good. Now, as for the second, I gave it a 3. The story was super heavy, way too fast, and then it played with really dark themes, but not in a way that was all that funny. It just felt sad. The overarching story was fine, but that he wants to help his daughter get into some fancy ballet school and needs money. I mean, it's just the story of the first one transposed to match what it would be for Happy at 58. So let's go to the next category, which is acting. I gave a 4 to Happy Gilmore 1. I know Richard Kiel was in pain, and you can tell when watching him, but you know, he's not a great actor. Adam Sandler was good, but fairly generic and clearly not as comfortable with playing serious yet, but really, no problems with acting in this. And for number 2, a 2.5. Adam is fine and his daughter is fine. Ben Stiller is actually pretty good as Hal again. Christopher McDonald is super hammy, but he was supposed to be. Everyone else is just not that good. I mean, he puts a ton of people in his movies that aren't very good at acting in general, so it's to be expected, I suppose, but you know, wasn't that great. So let's go to originality, which I gave a 4 for the first one. There had definitely been sports comedies before, but this felt like something new when it came out. Golf was a good sport to pick because you can really focus on an individual with it. Now with the second movie, not so good. I gave originality a 1.5. It's almost exactly the plot of the first one, and then on top of that, they have to keep showing vignettes of the first movie so that people will understand the references of this one. Not original. I gave it some points for coming up with a mini golf version of real golf that was kind of interesting, I suppose. That's why it's not a 1. So let's go to dialogue/writing, which for the first movie I gave a 4.25. It's a very funny movie without a ton of humor. Coherence. There's not really much to say for the first one, and there won't be much to say for the second either, though as you've probably come to expect at this point, not as good. I gave it a 2.5. It made me laugh more than I was expecting, so I didn't go too low. When I say expecting, I didn't realize I had laughed as much as I did until I checked the laugh counters, is what I'm saying there. But other than that, though, not good. So let's go to film coherence. So the film coherence on the first one, I gave a 4.5, probably because it felt like there were some nonsense scenes, is why I didn't go higher than that, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but maybe don't cohere that well. I decided not to knock it too hard for that. I think probably the biggest thing for me is that he just goes around assaulting people. Like, that doesn't really work. As for the second one, I gave it a 1.5. I don't know how to bash this without spoiling it, but they have a ton of cameos in it, and they explain the cameos as them being the children of the people in the first movie. Look, basically nothing in this really made any sense, although I did appreciate that they acknowledged the Happy can't just go around beating people up. So there you go. So let's go to the next category, which is joke coherence, and that's essentially, do the jokes make sense for the plot of the movie? In the first movie, I gave it a 4.75. So other than some random stuff like the kid in the batting cage and his happy place, it was pretty strong on staying with character personalities and situations that made sense for the plot. The second movie kind of lost its way with a 1.75. This was all over the place, just like the plot was. Jokes were just random and thrown in, and a lot of times just plain directed at the first movie. Just not good here. So let's go to joke relevance, which I gave a 4.75 for the first one. I was worried going into this that some of the jokes wouldn't hold up, but I didn't cringe at anything. The only thing was, you could make a case for some pop culture references, which might not stand the test of times, like Grizzly Adams or just Lee Trevino being in it in general, but really, that was pretty close to nothing. And while the first movie's relevance was pretty high, the newer one, not as much. I gave it a 3.5. So this made me laugh a decent amount of times, but I feel like there were more jokes I didn't laugh at than I did. Still though, I don't know that they won't stand the test of time necessarily. There wasn't anything that would feel like wouldn't necessarily be funny 30 years from now, but again, it's just not that great of a movie, so yeah. All right, let's go to character relatability. So for the first movie, I gave it a 4.25. Some people do some ridiculous things, but for the most part, everyone's motivations feel real and true and relatable. Not as relatable was the second movie at a 2.5. Nobody really makes too much sense here, but I can relate to wanting to do things for my kids. So there's that. I mean, it's not entirely unrelatable. You can understand the motivations, but it's thin. All right, so let's go to my rank. Now for the first movie, I gave it a 5. And maybe this is affected by nostalgia, whatever. I loved this movie when I was a teenager and I love it now. From the classic that was the first one to the disappointment of the second, my rank for Happy Gilmore 2 is a 2. I really wanted to like this. I also wanted to be like, don't listen to critics, it's funny. But while it is funny at times, it doesn't have the charm that the first one did. All right, let's finish things out here with the laugh counter. For the original Happy Gilmore, my laugh counter was a 38, which is pretty darn high. And for the second Happy Gilmore, it was a 22, which is higher than I would have expected based on how the movie was. Now, this makes the first Happy Gilmore a 77.75, which puts it in the top tier of comedies, The Meaning of Life. Unfortunately, its sequel got a 42.75, which puts it in Rank It and Regret It, and is officially on the bottom of all comedies ranked so far right now. So thanks for listening and or watching. If you'd like to see a list of our comedy movie rankings, you can do that on our website at therankpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe, review, and comment, and please consider supporting us on our Patreon site at patreon.com/therankpodcast. And like the episode if you enjoyed it. I'll let Happy lead us out, or somebody else will say goodbye.
Yakety yak, don't come back.
It got 46.7 million viewers to stream it. Hold on, kids are running around.
The walls in your house, paper thin.